let's play around with some silk reeling transitions. So take a kind of bow stance. If you're mirroring me, your right leg is forward, your left leg is back, your left foot's about a 45-degree angle. It can be kind of wide, a little bit wider than shoulder width, or maybe shoulder width apart. Doesn't have to be too precise. And you're going to kind of bend your knees a little bit to sink your hips. And begin by imagining there's a cauldron in front of you, and you're going to dip the hands into the cauldron, and you're going to begin to stir. And so if your right leg is forward and you're mirroring me, you're stirring clockwise to begin with. You begin to shift the hips forward and shift the hips back, and let the rhythm of your breath be natural. You're not trying to bring it into phase with the movement. Now, this is a variation of a move from Hunyuan Qigong, or primordial Qigong. And in primordial Qigong, it's part of the basic or the intro Hunyuan Qigong set. That's how I learned it. And in the Hunyuan Qigong set, it looks more like what I'm going to show you in a second. It's you turn the palms away as you imagine wiping the inside of a bowl. And then as you shift back, you turn your hands away again like you're wiping the outside of the bowl. So my teacher called it wiping the bowl, wiping the inside of the bowl furthest away, wiping the outside of the bowl closest to you. You're wiping the inside of the bowl, wiping the outside of the bowl. And you can have a more narrow stance, wiping the inside of the bowl, wiping the outside of the bowl, or like I often like to do, take a little bit of a lower, wider stance. Now, as we're going to do it here, just kind of let the hands circle in the imagined elixir of the cauldron. I sometimes just call this stirring the pot. And so you're just letting the hands kind of run through the water. Imagine that you've kind of lost your ladle and you need to stir this cauldron full of elixir or soup or whatever it may be. And you're just stirring the pot. And here we're not going to be too precise about body mechanics. So just imagine you're stirring the pot. Maybe at the beginning, stir with the fingertips. Now we're going to play with this for a little bit and play with it by bringing attention to different parts of the body. And then from there, we're going to start exploring some transitions into other more commonly practiced silk reeling moves. So here, imagine it's the fingers stirring what's in the pot. And then maybe bring the attention to the wrists. So it might not really change the movement at all, but you're stirring with the wrists, and the hands and fingers are kind of flowing behind in the pot. Eyes can be opened or closed. And then bring the focus of your movement to the elbows. And just imagine that you're stirring, and the stirring is beginning somehow with the elbows, and the wrists are flowing behind, and then the fingers are flowing behind the wrists. And then you could stay there for a while, but bring it up to the shoulders. So you're stirring with the shoulders. And the elbows are following the shoulders. And then the wrists are following the elbows, and the fingers are flowing behind the wrists. And then you can bring it down to the space of the heart. So you're stirring. And it's like the heart is just making circles, maybe horizontal circles in space. Maybe it's more just like going a little bit forward and a little bit back with the heart. And the shoulders are kind of flowing behind the heart. And then the elbows follow the shoulders, and the wrists follow the elbows, and the fingers follow the wrists. And then you can bring it down to the navel, the space between the navel and the point on the spine directly opposite the navel. Imagine that's where the movement is originating from. And you might feel it there. You might actually change the movement of the parts of the body, or maybe it's just the intention. It's all okay. Just bring it to the navel or the space behind the navel. And the heart follows the navel. And then the shoulders follow the heart, and then the elbows flow along behind, almost like streamers. And then the wrists and the fingertips stirring the pot. So this is stirring the pot. And you can make this, even with the same kind of mechanics, more like wiping the bowl or washing the bowl. And to that, all you would do is you turn the palms away like you're wiping the inside of the bowl furthest away and wiping the outside of the bowl closest. Now this is a kind of silk rolling practice, not here in any way that's emphasizing martial applications or anything like that, but it is a kind of variation of a more traditional silk rolling practice where you push the hands out and then pull them back. You can try that. So you turn the hips, push forward, and then pull back. Push forward, and pull back. And with silk rolling like this, you can take a more narrow stance if you don't want to really train the legs or work the legs as much. Or if you like, you can take a really lower stance. Push and turn back. And you could do this much slower. But here, let's play around in the same way we were playing around with the last one. Just pushing forward and pulling back, but bring the attention first to the fingertips, like you're reaching out, maybe touching somebody that you're practicing push hands with. And then you pull back and just bring the attention to the pads of the fingertips and the rest of the fingers even. Noticing movement of air around you. And then if you like, bring the attention more to the heels of the hands or closer to the wrists. So you're kind of pushing forward with the heels of the hands and even the palms. And then pulling back and kind of lifting, pushing, and pulling back. And this can be a more closely connected to kind of taiji martial applications. But here, just make the circles. And then maybe bring the attention to the elbows, maybe pulling the elbows back and then pushing out with the elbows and letting the wrists and the hands flow. But you're just kind of focusing on the movement of the elbows here. And then maybe bring it up to the shoulders. So the movement might or might not change. Here I'm not too concerned about what it looks like from the outside. Just feel the movement as if it's coming from the shoulders in space. And with the shoulders, you can kind of turn the shoulder in, kind of imagine you're pushing first with the shoulder and then pulling back with the shoulders and the upper back. Or you can just do the same kind of silk rolling turning. Now bring it down to the heart, right? Just imagine it's the heart sort of moving in space, turns, and then comes back, turns forward, and have the hands and the arms and all that kind of flowing out. Imagine it's coming up from the heart. And then bring it down to the navel, just turning. So as you begin to come forward, the navel, just imagine that space behind the navel moves first. And a fraction of a second later, the heart and the shoulders and the elbows and the hands. And then you turn back, begin here, pulling back, pushing forward, and pulling back. Just trying to feel like these different parts of the body as they move. And if it all feels the same, just circle the hands and turn the waist a little bit. All right, so this is one kind of silk rolling practice. Push, pull back. You can do it a lot lower if you like, a lot higher. But here, begin to circle the hands out as you come down. Actually, let's not do that. Let's go back to this. Hang tight. All right, now, from here, begin to have the hands come out a little bit more in front of the body. And then as you pull back, you bring them closer into the body. So we're just going to transition to pushing forward and pulling back and bring the feet back. So you're pushing, pull back in, maybe shift the hips back as you come up. Push, circle back. You might even imagine here there's a ball. You're circling the hands from the ball. Just try that for a moment. So there's like a sphere in front of you and you're just rolling the hands around it. So you're rolling the hands in front of you, turning the ball, and you come up and push over. Now, as you're doing this, begin to focus on pushing away at the top. And then circle the hands back and up, pushing away at the top. I mean, I guess you could imagine like somebody's coming at you and you want to push them away. This would be kind of a vulnerable position with the feet like this, but you push, kind of send it out from the feet. So, I mean, what I mean by that is push into the feet and push forward, and then pull back. And then now focus on pulling in. You're pulling in, curve it up, push out. So pulling it in, pull up, push out. Pull in, push out. Now, if you know zhōutiān or Microcosmic Orbit or the small heavenly orbit meditation practice, you could bring that in here. And what that would be, I'll slow it down. As you imagine that there's energy at the perineum, at the Hunyuan point between the legs, and you imagine as you bring the hands up, the energy is somehow flowing up past your sacrum, up the back, over the top of the head, and begins to cascade down the face. As you push out, it goes down the front line of the body. So you're pulling up, imagine drawing energy up the back line of the body. Push forward and out, imagine it coming down the front. That's one way to do this. And if you want to just circle the ball, you can do that too. As you push forward, send the hips back a little bit here. And as you pull in, send the hips forward. Just a little bit of counter movement. Push and pull back. Push and pull back. All right, now we could do that for a long time. But right now, let's begin. We're going to switch to the other side. Here we go. So as you push out, you're going to push out towards your left if you're mirroring me. And pull back. Keep the feet where they are. So you're pushing out a little bit more to the angle out to your left if you're mirroring me. Pull back. Maybe step that left foot out. Push. And then begin to shift, coming back into this form of silk rolling practice. So pulling back, coming up. Push forward. Come back, pull up. Push forward. Here, just begin with the fingertips again. Just focusing on the sensations in the fingertips as you move. Don't worry about getting the body mechanics too precise here. Just focus on moving the fingertips in space. And maybe bring it to the heels of the hands and the palms as you push away. And then pull back. You're lifting with the hands. Push. Pull back. We're not focusing on martial applications or training for that here. You could. Just kind of imagine pushing away, pulling back and lifting. You could still do the microcosmic orbit with this. As you pull back, you imagine you're lifting and it's like curving up under the perineum, around the sacrum, up the back, pushing up over the top of the head. At whatever point you begin to imagine it coming down the face and then it comes down the front. Just circulating microcosmic orbit. Or if that seems like a pain in the ass, just circle the hands. So push, pull back. Now, bring the movement to the elbows. Notice the elbows pulling back, and then send it forward from the elbows out the hands. Maybe bring it up to the shoulders, turning the shoulders in space, and then the elbows and wrists and hands and fingertips kind of gently project out from that. And then drop the movement origin down to the heart, turning the heart like the spine is like a column, shifting and turning. There might be a little bit of lean, but the focus is not on leaning, but just turning and shifting. And then bring it down to the space behind the navel. Coming up, push, pull back, curve it up, push. All right, now from here, we're gonna begin to make the movements a little more horizontal. And so you're gonna bring it down, you're pushing forward, down low, and then pulling back. And the hands are like pulling water back this way. And then pushing forward and pulling back. Then maybe take a more narrow stance and just come back. Maybe come back to washing the bowl, wiping the inside of the bowl, wiping the outside of the bowl. You can take a more narrow stance if you like. And then just kind of let it come into stirring the pot. That is, just letting the hands kind of flow in the water. Make the movements really small. Still some shifting of the hips. All right, so that's one way to play with these. To close, bring the feet back about shoulder width apart. Have the feet angled out. I'm going to bring the hands up. We're going to do what's called lowering the chi. Just imagine you're lowering it down to the height of the navel. Pause briefly, turn the hands toward the navel so that the center point of each palm, the Lao Gong point, is aiming at the navel. We're going to do it 2 more times. Coming up, coming back down. Last one. And at the end, just have the hands over the navel. For this, as a Hunyuan style, the invitation would be for women to place the left hand against the body, and for men to place the right hand against the body. But if it feels better the other way, or you just mix it all up, no harm will come to you. Pausing for a moment, the eyes can either be closed or maybe gently open with a downward glance. Just take a moment, notice any experience arising inside your body right now. Notice any experience that feels like it's happening at the surface of your body. And then just notice anything that feels like it's coming from outside. And then when you're good and ready, you let that go. You find your little remote control and you go on with your day.